Okay, so this is 491 Senior Seminar. The first 3 weeks of this class are going to really suck. Well, not for me. Well, except for I'm going to have to read all those papers. That kind of sucks. But everything is kind of front-loaded so that you have a majority of the semester to actually work on your project. All right, so the starting point is the class. This is kind of your capstone, rite of passage, whatever. So it comes out to somewhere in the ballpark of about 18 to 20 hours per week of actual work. So it has to be like a 300-hour project, and you're going to have to document that as you're going through. So I think I said in the email, I suggest that you kind of set up the class as if it's like a part-time job, and just set aside the time you're going to work on the stuff for the class. We will not meet regularly after the first 3 weeks. And even during these first 3 weeks, our class meetings will be relatively short, just as long as you have questions. So for instance, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea paper and project scope and that kind of stuff. And then if you have specific questions or need my help coming up with a project idea, I'll stick around for as long as you want me to stick around. If we need to hang out for 2 hours, that's fine. But as soon as you're done with me, then we're done, is kind of the punchline. In terms of deliverables, so this Thursday is when the idea paper is due. So that is your, here's your proposal. This is my proposal for what I'm going to do this semester. Now, I might have comments for this to help you get the scope a little bit better. So some of you might come up with projects that aren't quite big enough. What's actually more common is for people to propose projects that are actually too big. Like you have this idea like, oh, well, I can do this, and this. And then if we just add time travel, that's 300 hours. So then I'll help you scope that down. I'll have all the idea papers graded within about 2 hours of the end of class on Thursday. So I grade them right away so you have immediate feedback, because due a week from Thursday is your requirements document. And again, we'll meet on that Tuesday. If you have questions about your requirements document and, want to say, am I heading in the right direction here? This kind of stuff. I'm happy to talk about that. Now, there isn't a length requirement for the requirements document. Keep in mind the requirements document, when you took 370, the purpose of this document is the what you are going to be doing. So that document should unambiguously describe all of the features, all the requirements of your final project. I intend to use that document at the end to go through and effectively use it as a checklist. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? So everything you promised on the requirements document should be in your final report, let's say. Now, that is somewhat of a living document, though. So we're going to make a guess on time commitment in that requirements document. And almost always there's going to be some aspect of your project that's going to take longer than you expected. Sometimes there's an aspect of your project that didn't take as long as you expected. You thought it was going to be something kind of difficult, and you found out there was some third-party API that already solved that problem, something like that. So life is a little bit easier. But you might run into something that you estimated was going to take you 20 hours and ended up taking you 75 hours. So that's when, you come to me and we talk about it and decide, okay, well, so if since that took longer, let's dump this other feature that wasn't as important or something like that. So that can be somewhat of a living document. But your first pass at that requirements document is due a week from this Thursday, which should set you up for beginning to work through your project. So not just am I going to use this thing as a checklist for doing your final grade, you should use it as a checklist as you're going through and working on your project. Okay, so the requirements document itself is the what you will be doing. I mean, if you want to follow some stupid template that adds all these sections that don't mean anything, go ahead. Okay, but this is a functional document, not something that's supposed to impress somebody. That requirements document. So I don't care if you follow some sort of template. If you can fit it all on one page, that's fine. It seems maybe unlikely. If you're going to really be unambiguous with your the actual requirements, like maybe a short 2 or 3 sentences for a requirement saying exactly how this requirement will work. But it certainly doesn't need to be a 10-page thing that's 90% fluff. Okay, so you're not trying to hit some sort of number of pages. The reason the idea paper is a little bit bigger is because I really want you to think through your idea. I expect most of them would probably be closer to 3. 5 was probably, I just threw it in there for whatever. But I guess I don't want them to be longer than that. But I doubt many of you will need more than 3 pages to describe your project. But it at least makes you think through the full scope of it. All right, so the requirements document should mostly be a checklist that is kind of the agreement between you and I on what I'm going to be grading you on. Okay? 2 weeks from this Thursday, so the Thursday after the requirements document is due, that's your specifications document. I suggest you start with your requirements document and then explode it out to your specifications document. What the specifications document is how you will meet each of those requirements. That's where you start picking the technologies you're going to be using. The maybe you partially build your database from, you design your database, not necessarily code it, but it's going to give you kind of your paint by number that you can then follow to actually implement your project. Okay, so think about the 370 class, software engineering, how a majority of that class is plan, and then a small piece of it is the actual coding. Now, the idea is, in let's call it professional software development or software engineering, is that if you plan everything correctly, the code should almost write itself. In fact, there's actually some automation tools that are out there that if you describe your project through a project management language, like UML or something like that, it'll actually generate the code for a good percentage of the project. So you just have to go back through and maybe fill in the hard bits or something like that. Okay, so with that being said, the first 3 weeks of this class is going to be a lot of paperwork stuff. And those do count towards your 300 hours while you're working on those, because that's all part of the project, right? I mean, the worst thing you could do is just dive in and start writing code or something when you don't really know what problem you're even trying to solve. Okay, so this is all part of your total number of hours. Okay, so that's what happens this next 3 weeks. In each of the Thursdays, I'll have your documents graded within a couple of hours following class. So I might even just sit in here and finish it right after class was done. So I want to get those back to you immediately so you can start working on the next one. All right, we'll meet this, we'll meet this Thursday because classes, looks like classes are only canceled through noon on Thursday. So I'll be here this Thursday, but if you understand where things are going, you get your idea paper in, you don't have any last minute questions, I'm not going to lose sleep if you don't show up. I'll get it graded right after class and then work on your requirements document. Same thing goes for next week. I'll be here on Tuesday. If you have questions about your requirements document or you want some feedback, you want to bounce some ideas off, show up. If you don't, again, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. After the third week, after that third Thursday, we will not regularly meet for class. You'll be working on your project during the rest of the semester, and the idea is you'll use that time period that we would be meeting for class to work on your project. Now, having said that, it's not uncommon that some teams want to, or some people want to meet about their project even on a weekly basis. So I'm happy to set up a weekly appointment with you to meet, something like that. All I ask is you just don't stand me up, So if you want to meet every Tuesday and you just want to almost to hold yourself accountable, that's fine. I'm happy to come in and meet you, but don't message me Tuesday morning 10 minutes before we're meeting and say, oh, well, I didn't have anything to talk to you this week, so thanks for wasting your time coming in. That type of thing. But I am happy to meet with you. It just makes more sense to meet one-on-one than it does to meet as a group since everybody's working on different projects. Okay, so take advantage of that if you think that'll help you to kind of stick with it during the semester. I'm happy to have a standing appointment with you each week. So it's not a matter of I don't want to spend time. I just want to make the time constructive. Okay. Near the end of the semester, we will meet again. Actually, we'll probably meet again for one day, maybe like the week after spring break, where everybody will come in and do a little 5-minute update on their project. And this actually is not a graded activity. So I suppose if you want to just bail on it, you can. But the hope would be that you come and do that, because what ends up happening is several of you are not going to accomplish anything between now and midterms because you procrastinate, right? Even though you're telling yourself now you're not going to procrastinate. So then what happens is you come back after midterms and you get up in front of the class and give a report on what you've accomplished up to that point, and then you embarrass yourself. And that makes you feel bad, and then you kick your butt into gear for the last 8 weeks. And then you can pass the class. So there's a reason for it, okay? Is the punchline. So I'll let you know at least 2 weeks in advance before we would meet. But that'll be like one class period, but we'll just do 5-minute little updates on the projects. Then we'll coast until near the end of the semester. We'll probably give presentations. Let's see, this class is pretty big, so we'll probably have 3 presentation days. There'll be 2 the week before final exams, and then our last presentations will be at the final exam. We'll firm those up, and probably somewhere around midterms you'll know what your order is, and if you want to trade with people, you can, and bribe and whatever it is. At the very end of finals week, so let's call it midnight that Friday, is when I need you to submit your final implementation, your final documentation, all that stuff for actual grading. Your presentation is going to be before that, so it's not uncommon for people to give their presentation when they don't necessarily have all the little bugs worked out. Sometimes you have to say, well, I'm not going to show this screen because it crashes, or something like that. But in any case, everything I need to have in by midnight on that Friday, because I have to have grades in by the following Monday, and I need to look at them. Okay. Documentation is going to be different, probably, for different people's projects. So what's going to come up the week or 2 before finals, you're going to say, oh, how long does the documentation need to be? And then what I'm going to say is, as long as it needs to be. Okay, so the short version of this is your documentation should be whatever, if somebody were to take your project over and keep going with it, what would they need to get kind of a turbo start on your project? All right, so if it is some sort of website or something like that, they should know where all the files are stored and what the usernames and passwords are for administration stuff, and all the stuff to get them up to speed on your project as quickly as possible. So that documentation is going to change depending on the nature of your project. So your goal is that you should be able to hand your implementation and this documentation over to somebody else, and a reasonably technical person should be able to get themselves up to speed within a couple of days using your documentation. Okay. Now, when I say reasonably technical person, that doesn't mean your shadow who worked on this for the entire semester, where you just have a couple of Post-it notes and say this is how it is. It's somebody who knows how to use technology but doesn't have a clue what your project was. Okay, they're learning everything off of that documentation sheet. Go ahead.
So it's really more for like a developer guy type thing than
Yeah.
User documentation.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. It's for a developer that might take over your project and keep going with it. Yeah, not the end user. Okay, and then presentations are. Once we have the actual final presentation times, I'll give you a final thing, but they're roughly 30-minute presentations, about a 25-minute presentation followed by 5 minutes for questions. All right, so that might change slightly, 5 minutes or something, depending on how many people we can fit into a given day, but plan on that. It's about a 30-minute presentation. Okay. So questions about any of the things that are going to be happening in the next 3 weeks and then the rest of the semester? How many of you do not currently have project ideas? Okay. So my guess is you probably need to hang out for a few minutes so we can talk about potential project ideas. How many of you have a project idea but have some questions specifically about your project idea? So everybody else is off to the races. All right, so everybody is prepared to get their idea paper done and submitted by Thursday? All right. And then on Thursday, we will talk about that requirements document in a little bit more detail, but I mean, I'm not going to say things that are substantially different than what I said today. The only thing I'll re-emphasize is I don't want you to go out and find some stupid requirements document template where you're just filling in blanks for something that's really kind of meaningless. The requirements document is a tool that serves a purpose. It's not a matter of, fill out these 9 sections and 8 of them are meaningless and the thing hasn't even solved the problem it's supposed to solve. If you've gone and looked at requirement or specification document templates online, it's like stereo instructions. They're almost like meaningless type things. That document is a tool that should help you move through the semester. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns, bribes? Sooner rather than later, I would start setting up a schedule for working on this stuff and treat it like it's a job. So it's kind of a big deal, and the trade-off is, you don't have regular class meetings after the first 3 weeks, but you're going to have to dedicate time to the project. Because it's pretty noticeable at the end if you half-assed it and then you're the one standing up there giving a 30-minute presentation that lasts 5 minutes and not having much to show. Cool? All right, I will see everybody on Thursday. Hopefully most of you saw the email, but classes this evening are canceled. Classes all day tomorrow are canceled. And then it looks like classes before noon are canceled on Thursday because of the wind chill stuff. So stay warm and write your paper. All right, so a couple of people who need help with coming up with some project ideas, hang out. Anybody else who has questions, hang out. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you on Thursday. I'll go ahead and get this video uploaded while we're clearing out.